The Canon C50 is here, and it is a warning shot at Sony and their nearly 5-year-old FX3. Canon has raised the bar so high for compact run-and-gun cinema cameras that Sony is going to seriously have to step it up when it comes time to answer. So in the short time that I've had this loaner C50, that's kind of where my mind went. What is better about the C50, and what will the FX3 Mark II have to do to keep up with it or pass it? So in this video, I'm going to assume that you already know a little bit about the C50. Maybe this is the second or third or 200th video that you've watched about it. I'm going to talk about my thoughts on where the C50 really crushed the FX3 and the 2 or 3 crucial features that I found that I still preferred on the FX3. Overall, this will give a bit of an idea of my experience with the C50, but also act as a bit of a wish list for what I want to see on the Sony FX3 Mark II when they fire back. So secure the cup and let's get into it. The first place where the C50 has a leg up on the FX3 is what's going on inside the camera, starting with the image itself. Visually, the C50 looks great, and this is not surprising because Canon has always had really pleasing colors and really great image quality. I've been noticing lately how my FX3 has a tendency to lean a little bit warm compared to other cameras, which can kind of mess with my skin tones a bit, and comparing it to the C50 really brought that out. Now, don't get me wrong here, the image is still great coming out of the FX3 and it can be touched up in post to get it where I want it, but it does take more work to get there than the image out of the C50. But that's kind of a subjective topic. Where the C50 really crushes the FX3 is in its recording options. The C50 has a 34 megapixel sensor, nearly 3 times the resolution of the FX3's 12 megapixel sensor, and to fully utilize that sensor, Canon has offered a ton of in-camera options for how you record your video. While both cameras can go up to 4K 120, the C50 shoots 7K video. It gives us 3x2 open gate options. We've got internal 12-bit RAW straight to a CF Express Type B card. We've also got multiple levels of RAW options depending on how heavy you want those files to be. And we've got Super 35 and Super 16 crop modes that still offer RAW options. The FX3, on the other hand, maxes out at 4K with that 12 megapixel sensor, which means that while you can do some clear image zoom, there's no quick and easy 4K Super 35 mode available because there just isn't enough resolution. And while that 12 megapixel sensor has its own other advantages, which we will get into later, I definitely love being able to pop into a crop mode here and there when I want to without going down below a 4K resolution. Now let's talk about the experience of actually using these cameras. The C50 is bigger and heavier than the FX3, but honestly, it's not that much bigger that it really makes it an issue. It's mostly just a little bit thicker than the FX3, and I think the FX3 Mark II could totally be a little bit thicker, maybe even a little bit taller, and people wouldn't mind at all as long as it meant more functionality. And speaking of functionality, the C50 has a ton of custom buttons, which from the perspective of someone who had to really quickly set it up so that I could review it, it was a lot, but once I got it set up, it was actually really great to have all those options and all that customizability right at my fingertips. For I/O, the two cameras have a fairly similar set, but the C50 does have a dedicated timecode port, which is definitely a nice thing to have for certain cinematographers. Both cameras feature 4 extra quarter 20 threads for mounting, but the C50 has an extra pin spot on the bottom near the tripod plate mount for keeping your plate locked in position and straight. Why they didn't make it a quarter 20 thread on the bottom is kind of beyond me, but still, it's a small professional step up from the FX3. But to me, the biggest ergonomic win with the C50 is in the audio top handle. First off, putting it on and taking it off is so much easier on the C50 than on the FX3. It's a couple little finger screws that you can tighten just again with your fingers and you're done. The FX3 requires a tool to really get it tight enough to feel secure, and it's really awkward to get in there with my tool. The handle itself is much more comfortable comfortable on the C50. It's the closed loop style, which feels more secure than the open style that we've got on the FX3. The C50 handle also has a record button, a zoom rocker, a cold shoe, and it's got a tally light up on the front. And in my opinion, the microphone mount is much better on here too. The Sony one is designed specifically with a Sony mic in mind, so it's too big for almost any other microphone unless you buy these weird little rubber sizers that I have in here. The C50 shock mount, on the other hand, is much more secure feeling. It's easier to get open and close. It fits all my usual microphones without any extra accessories needed, which is so nice. So the fact that it sticks out a little bit further on the C50 than the FX3 is absolutely fine in my opinion. Still definitely a big win. And lastly, in terms of just using the camera, the C50 has a ton of important monitoring options. Things like false color, choosing what you see on the screen and how you see it, as well as what's going out over HDMI for external monitoring and recording. It just feels absolutely endless. Whereas the FX3 still has no false colors, it limits HDMI output resolution quite a bit, and it blacks out the built-in monitor if you're outputting any of the screen info over HDMI. So up to this point, the C50 looks like a slam dunk against the FX3. But before you run out and sell your FX3, you need to know about a few crucial features where, in my opinion, the Sony still dominates. But before we get into that, we need to talk about how we can manage all of this data, and that's where the Lexar professional workflow comes in. This thing lives on my desk, and it's an absolute lifesaver when it comes to how I deal with my media. It's a modular 6-bay docking station, so when I'm going back and forth with things like Canon C50 CF Express Type B cards, I've got a reader for that, or the CF Express Type A cards from the FX3, I've got that too. There's also SD cards, micro SD, and you can even get an SSD that plugs directly into the docking station as well. This means that I can offload every single piece of media from my entire rig, no more dongle mess to deal with, and I can be transferring files from both cameras at the same time. The docking station itself is built for speed. It has a Thunderbolt 4 connection to my computer. 2 of the slots are 40 gigabits per second and the rest are 10 gigabits per second. This thing handles those massive file transfers with ease. And if I'm on the go, I can just grab the individual modules that I need and plug them straight into my laptop directly with a cable. It also has extra ports, so it extends my ability to plug in monitors or other USB devices into it as well. So if you're a professional dealing with multi-camera workflows and huge files, I absolutely recommend checking out the Lexar Professional Workflow Docking Station. If you want to check them out, I'll drop a link down in the description. Huge thanks to Lexar for partnering with me on this video. Now that we've got the data handled, let's get back to the 2 crucial features that, in my opinion, the FX3 still has the upper hand. The first thing that I still appreciate in the FX3 that I know I'm going to get a bunch of angry comments about is the fact that it has IBIS. Yes, the C50 does have digital image stabilization. It comes with a roughly 10% crop, and it's not available in all modes, and it's just not the same as having true in-body stabilization. Lots of great cinema cameras, though, don't have IBIS, and that's okay, but I will admit that on a camera this small and this light like the C50, I did find it a little bit difficult to get any handheld footage that didn't have those annoying little micro jitters and shakes in it. On bigger, heavier cinema cameras, all of those little jittery shakes would naturally be taken out by the weight of the rig itself. Now, the C50 does also write gyro data to the file, so you can use that and do some post-stabilization, but that process is honestly kind of annoying with any camera I've ever used it with. In the end, I just personally love having the option of IBIS on my FX3. Not saying that the FX3 IBIS is the end all be all or anything like that, but I just like being able to turn it on when I want it and off when I don't. It's just nice to have the freedom for run and gun situations. And the second place where I think the FX3 still kills it is in low light. Not necessarily saying that the C50 is bad in low light by any means, but the FX3 is so clean in low light that it's hard to beat. This is tied a lot to that 12 megapixel sensor because the sensor is only the resolution needed to give us 4K images, which means that the photo sites are huge, which allows for a lot of light gathering. We've got dual base ISO at 800 and 12,800 on the FX3 compared to 800 and 6,400 on the C50. I definitely did notice that there was more noise coming out of the C50 than the FX3 in similar situations, and especially because the FX3 you can crank up to crazy ISOs and it still has pretty clean performance, whereas the C50 kind of maxes out a lot earlier and that second base ISO is a full stop lower. So with all that in mind, the C50 has really raised the bar when it comes to this type of camera. It forces Sony to step things up when they come out with the FX3 Mark II or whatever the next camera is. If Sony wants to catch up with the resolution game, my personal wish would be that they would go with something like a 6K sensor, kind of approximately 20 megapixels. Similarly to what they did with the 4K before in the FX3, it would be exactly the resolution that they need to give us 6K, open gate, and 4K Super 35 mode. Not going any bigger than that or any higher resolution than that keeps the photo sites as big as possible and hopefully allows them to still give us that legendary low light performance. I think they seriously need to consider giving us internal RAW recording as an option, just like the C50 and the Nikon ZR as well. But that's not all. Sony also needs to fix the usability issues that we're seeing get fixed on other cameras too. They need to give us a bigger, brighter monitor, just like the Nikon ZR. And please, please, please copy this top handle from the C50 because it is great. And finally, they need to fix the monitoring limitations, give us false colors, and stop limiting the HDMI output resolution and blacking out the built-in screen when using HDMI. But as always, I want to hear from you too. What do you think the FX3 Mark II needs to beat the C50? Is IBIS and low light enough to keep you on the Sony side? Let me know down in the comments, and if you have any questions, leave them down there and I'll try and help you out. And on your way down there, make sure to hit the like, subscribe, and bell notification buttons. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.